Welcome everyone, this is Zon with Rebar Products. Today's video is a request by a user. They're asking us to walk through the steps on how to create a column. And in this structural column, there are rebar, and he wanted to know how do you model all the rebar like this. So unfortunately, since I'm not a structural engineer, I can't get into the details, but I can give you the basic principles on how to start creating all the rebar, and then you'll have to enhance it further, because as structural engineers would know better than I do, what the exact sizes are and the positions and whatnot. So from here, I'm in Revit 2018.3. You can do this in any of the Revit applications. Start with a structural template file. Once it starts, you'll see that you're on level 2. So I'll create a structural concrete column. So we head over to the Structure tab of the ribbon. Head over to Structure panel, click Column. In the Type selector, you'll see that we don't have a circular column. So we'll need to load it. So I'll click Load Family over here in the middle of the contextual ribbon. The Imperial Library will open up, and head over to Structural Columns. From here, open up that folder and head over to Concrete, and they do have a round concrete column. So I'll use that family, and I'll pick the largest one so it's easier to see. And I'm placing it, and don't forget I'm on level 2 and the depth is set to level 1, so let's just place one right here. Finish it. I'm going to set the scale to 1/2 inch so it's a little easier to see. I'll zoom in, and let's create a section so we can see what it looks like in elevation type view. Now, one of the things that you might want to consider doing is creating a reference plane at the midpoint of that column. That way you can align and place the section marker symbol to that position. So I'll use the move command, zoom in a little bit, place it on that reference plane. That way I can bisect the column, if you will. Heading over to that section, you can see what it looks like. We'll switch this again to 1/2 inch scale so it's easier to see. We'll hide the crop region, and we can start putting in rebar. I'm going to swap over to the image. From the image, from what I can tell, it looks like it has 4 rebars here that are on the outside, and they go all the way up and out. So to creating these 4, we'll jump back to Revit. Start by selecting the column and clicking the Rebar command, or heading over to Structural tab of the ribbon and clicking Rebar. When you click that command, it'll let you know that there are rebar shape definitions. Excuse me. That will include hooks, and so we'll include those as well. And as you can see, when you put your mouse over the column, the steel rebar wants to go in there. So what we want, though, is we want a custom shape one, because we need to draw it going outside of the column at an angle. So I'll click Sketch Rebar. It will ask you to select the host, so select the column again. You go back into sketch mode, and then I can draw the sketch that I need. So maybe if the sketch has to go under below the base of the column, we can place it and draw the sketch like this. If you need to, you can tweak and adjust the different shapes and sizes, say 1 feet 5 or 1 feet 6 inches, like that. As for the position, you can move it over with the arrow key as well. Try to keep it within the rebar cover. And the rebar number that we're working with, the default is number 4. So I think I tried once and I used the number 7. It's a little larger, and it looks okay. So we'll finish the command to make that single rebar. Now, let's head back over to level 1 or level 2 floor plan. And we can see, if we switch our level of detail to fine, we can see that rebar. And I purposely put it in dead midpoint of the column because I can then take this rebar and array it with the radial command, specifying the center point of the array as being the center of the column, quantity being 4, and an angle being 360 degrees. And it creates all 3 of them that are in the array, and you'll have 4 total. I'll select all of them and I'm going to ungroup them to keep them separate from each other and break the array. If we look at this in 3D, you can see what it looks like. And if we need to, we can set this to a fine level of detail. Also, let's go ahead and select all of them. I selected one and typed in SA. That's the keyboard shortcut for selecting all visible in the view. I'll head over to the View Visibility States and click Edit in the Properties. And we will show them as solid and unobscured. And that way, when we switch to hidden or shaded, you can still see it. So those are our 4. What about from the picture? It looks like there are some that are roughly equally spaced apart going all the way around. They're just straight ones down here. And I'm not sure what the count is. So let's jump back over to Revit. Head back over to our section. And in this case, again, we'll do the same command. We'll select the object, select rebar. In this case, we're going to scroll all the way back up and pick that rebar shape 0. And we want a single instance for now. And we'll do rebar number 7. And I'll just place it. Let's place it right here. Now that it's placed, again, we can head over to the 3D view so we can see it. And because we are in a shaded view, we can't see it. So I'm going to switch it to wireframe for a second. And you can see it's right there. Now, head back over to level 2 and verify that you've placed it exactly where you want. So I'm going to switch this to wireframe. And it looks like it's dead center there, which is fine. I'm going to do a window crossing to select that rebar. And again, we will array it in a radial fashion. I'm not sure how many, so for now I'll just do 15. Again, the center point of the rotation needs to be placed, so I'll put it in the dead midpoint. And the angle will be all 360 degrees. And it creates it, as you can see here. Select one, type in SA to select all of them, and we'll ungroup them. Head over to the 3D view again. And now we can see them, and they are arrayed. The one that's in the middle is not actually a structural rebar. That's the analytical structural column. And if you don't need to see it, you can click this little icon down here to hide that. Okay. And so we will select that one, type in SA, head over to View Visibility States, click Edit, and set them as solid so we can see them. There you go. And if I shade it, you can see what's going on. Heading back over to our section view, we can see all of our rebar again. So let's do the same thing that we did in the 3D view. We'll select all of them and click over View Visibility States. Make sure they're all saying solid, and we will switch this to a fine level of detail and shade it. And now you can see everything. Lastly, if we look at the picture, it looks like there is rebar that's a spiral type of rebar going all the way up. Again, I'm not sure exactly as to the spacing between each and any of the structural component aspects of it. So for now, we will just select the column, use the rebar command, head over to our rebar shape browser, and scroll down until we find the typical spiral rebar, which is right here, rebar shape SP for spiral. Now when you place it, you can place it at the top orientation, bottom orientation, front, back, right, or left. If you watch and you look at your mouse, you can see how it's being placed when you place your mouse over the column. If I click bottom, you're going to see what it looks like. If I click front, I'm in the front view and you can see how it gets placed. If my mouse is over here on the left edge of the column, it's going to do this. If it's on the top of the column, it's going to want to do this. So let's go ahead and just place it. And it gets placed. Once it's placed, if you need to, you can always select it after the fact. You may need to zoom in, you may need to hit tab to select it. Once it's selected, you can see over here it says base finishing turns, top finishing turns, which means there are 3 right here, right now. And from the picture, if we toggle over to the picture, I can't really see from the picture if there are any additional ones there. So we'll just assume 3 is fine. And then there's a height here, and that's going based off of the rebar cover. You see how there is a green dashed line that covers the outside edge of the column. That is there for you to let you know the rebar cover has a restriction. And so it's abiding by that. That's why You can see the green dashed line when the rebar is selected, and it says it's 9 feet 8 and 1/8 of an inch because it's accounting for the top and the bottom instead of being 10 all the way through. Okay. If for some reason you need it to be 10, again for whatever structural purposes, just type in 10 feet right here and it will adjust a little bit. If you have to manually adjust it, there are the arrows that you can pull right here, click and pull, and it will go past the column if necessary, which I wouldn't do. I'm again an architecture-based educated person, not structural. So from that standpoint, it looks like we have the spiral portion of the rebar done. And if we look at this in 3D, we can see our rebar. As for the spiral, let's switch back over to wireframe, select the rebar spiral, and click Edit under View Visibility States and specify as solid. Now they'll show, and if I type in SD, you'll see. There you go. Now, a couple things you might want to consider doing is if I select these four, I'll do Control and select these four. You can right-click and override in graphics just by those elements. And you might want to do things like change its color for the projections, say green, for example. And maybe for the surface pattern, let's make it solid and make it the same green color. This will give you that visual pop that you need to display in this particular view only, okay? So when you do override graphics by element or category, it's only in this particular view. So if I jump back over to the section, for example, it won't be colored. And then you can same with the other rebar, you can do the same approach. So if I head over to level 2, it might be easier to do in here. Zoom in, select the rebar, type in SA to select all the rebar, click to deselect. Head back over to your 3D view. And if I right click and I say select previous, it will grab all of them. Now I'll hold shift and remove the ones that I don't need, which are these four. And let's remove the spiral one. So all I have selected are just these vertical ones. And let's right click and override in graphics by element and make their color something different. You can also change the weight too if you need them to be more pronounced. So let's make it the orange and make the pattern solid. And you'll see you get a different result here too. And then lastly, we have that spiral. So let's right click override in graphics by element and let's change the surface pattern. Let's make it solid. And let's make it red this time. Same thing with the lines in projection. Make those red. Now we're all set and done. You can see the color change updates accordingly. The last thing you may need to do is you might have a situation where there's a column above and you've got some of these vertical columns. They go all the way up and it's supposed to attach to other columns that are coming down. And the rebar is coming down, so you might need like a coupler or something like that. In order to do that, let's head over to the section elevation. The reason I want to do that is because I want to take all of my columns and rebar content, except for the custom sketch ones. I'm going to copy them to the clipboard, and then I'm going to paste a line to selected levels, and we'll paste it to level 2. And then, actually, I placed it in the same spot, so I'm going to undo this for a second. And let's do this. Let's create another level. So I'll do level 3 at 10 feet, like so. And you won't see them because my crop region is turned off and I have adjusted it. So let's pull this up so I can see the levels. And then just because I like being particular, I'm going to pull them all the way out and pull it all the way back. and that way they are all aligned and locked. Okay, so now I'm going to grab everything and I'll copy, paste the selected levels, and this time I'll choose level 3. And the reason I'm doing that is because these columns were drawn such that it went from 2 down to 1, so we want to go and copy from 3 down to 2. Now, I'm going to take this column and we're going to adjust its size. So let's tab to get the column, and we will change the column, because right now it says it's level 2 to level 3. Let's take it level 2 to level 3, but let's make the base offset up by 2 feet. That way it comes up. And as you can see, we've got some rebar here, and we've got some rebar over here. So if I were to select one of the rebar, we may or may not be able to push or pull them. These we can, and these we cannot. These we cannot because these were sketch-based. These are the default ones, so if I were to take them and pull on one of the ends, you'll see it pulls down. So just for the video purposes, I'm just going to pull one of them. Okay, and the reason I'm bringing them closer to each other is so that I can put the coupler in there. I head over to the Structure tab of the ribbon, head over to the Reinforcement, and they have a Rebar Coupler command here. Start the command, and it'll ask you to select a valid rebar set. So I'm going to select this one. And remember, I'm using the place between two rebars, not on the end. And then this other one, and it will put it together. If it can't, it's probably because the spacing is incorrect or the sizing is incorrect. So let's see if I can push it a little closer. And then do the Rebar Coupler command again. And if it still is not working, then we have to adjust the size of the coupler or other aspects of it to make it work. So right now this says bar size 2 and bar size 1 is number 4, but our rebar that we picked is number 7. So if I were to do the command, go to the properties, they have one that's CPL number 7. Let's go to the type properties. There it is, 7 and 7. So this one should work. And you can see it gets placed. So you want to rinse and repeat that approach with all the other ones that are coming down. If we look at this in 3D, we can get an idea of what it looks like. There's that one. Okay. Obviously, all of these other rebar are not showing in 3D solid. So let's go ahead and grab all of them. Go to visibility states, and we'll make them all solid. There you go. And there's your coupler, by the way. So this is a video that was a request by an end user on how to create rebar for round columns. And this is the best that I can do, from the standpoint of not being a structural engineer and getting into all the specifics, but you can get fancier, obviously. They do have in Revit some extensions on doing rebar quickly as well. So depending on what version that you have, you might have the ability to put in reinforcement. See, right here. So here's a quick bonus. If I were to grab this column, hold Control, and drag it over here to pick another one, I'm going to take these rebar, and let's delete all of the rebar and the coupler here. So another easy way is to grab all of this, filter, check none, and just pick the rebar. And let's delete all the rebar. If you want to use this extension under reinforcement for columns, you have to select the column first. So I'll select the column, go back to extensions, go back to reinforcement, click columns. It will know that I'm selecting that one column, and it will open up its little program. And you'll have a little dialog box here that gives you geometry, bars, stirrups, dowels, and reinforcement area. So you have to go in here as a structural engineer and specify all the data that you need and how you want it to apply. And once you have everything set the way you want, hit OK, and it will build it for you. This is more of an automated process, but at least it gives you something quickly. And again, switching the wireframes, we can see the results. So let's select these and select this, and we'll switch our visibility to solid. And if I shade it, now you'll get an idea. Oh, almost forgot. Let's switch back to wireframe. And let's select these rebar again, and select this, and make sure we have unobscured is checked so we can see through it even after we shade it. Okay, and there you go. That's how you create rebar for round columns. Thank you very much for watching.